Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and this afternoon I'm delighted to be joined by Liam Carrigan. You are dialing in all the way from Japan, but you are, of course, a full-time member of the Celtic Down Under team over in Australia. Liam, big shout out to our fans in Australia. I don't mean Acsom fans, I mean Celtic fans out in Australia who I know tune in their numbers, Liam. Now, that was a decent first half, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was interesting that, in our pre-match, a lot of the comments were saying, oh, maybe Hatate shouldn't play today. Hatate needs a big performance. And, well, he certainly delivered that. He's looked back to his absolute sparkling best. The goal was one thing, but, there was also the assist for Palma's goal. And there was just his general play. He just looks like a man who is obviously ditching the blue gum shield has worked for him,
Well, yeah, that is something. We did want a kind of like tricolour style one that you see some of the boxers using. However, we did speak about it at the beginning of the game, and I'm far from being some kind of tactical genius. I just feel that sometimes when a player, and you know their quality, Liam, just let them play through it. Just let them play through it. And slowly but surely, the confidence will build. He's not taking a smack like he did against Motherwell and also against Lazio. The Lazio game, he's running about. He took that forearm to the face. He already had bruising round about his eye and his nose from the Motherwell game. And that goal, the individual brilliance of that goal. I had to see the replay to see the shimmy that he's nutmegged the boy with. Unbelievable bit of skill. Probably the only player on the park who could do it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the sort of thing you can't train. That's just instinct. And yeah, it was an absolute joy to watch. It really, really was.
Well, this, we've been talking about, Rodgers really putting in a performance. The Celtic side really putting in a kind of free-flowing performance, a confident game across the 90 minutes, scoring a few goals. We've not really seen it. But Tony comes in. Tony Davern, welcome back. Always great to see you, Tony. Best half of football we've played this year. On the boys, look like a dangerous team now. What I would say about that is when we're on the attack, we do look as though we're going to create a chance. And a big part of that, actually, is we've got an outlet in Palma, haven't we? I mean, he's a different type of player to Jota. I'm not going to say he's Jota-esque because I don't think he is. He's very direct, isn't he? And he loves that to open up and then strike a shot from distance. You know what, though? I thought it was going to get chopped off.
Yeah, I looked at the replay and I did think that Hatate was marginally offside. But you know what? He get punched in the face in midweek and nothing was done about that. So if he was an inch offside today, I think he's earned the right to get away with that for once.
Yeah, it was surprising under the circumstances, but it has put a really a different hue on the first half performance. It was, for me, it was a 2-0 performance all day of the week, and some big players stepping up. I thought Hatate was brilliant in the first half, justifying his inclusion in the team. Palma is just going to, I think he looks as though he's going to develop into this guy who's going to make a real big impact. And Mark McMonagle comes in and says that Palma's starting to find his stride, more game time, and he can only improve. This takes us back, I guess, to that recruitment period there in the transfer window, Liam, which has come in for a lot of criticism. And I think when you're chatting about it on the live stream, you always do it with a bit of caution because anyone can come back and haunt you. And by the way, you want them to. I'd love Kobayashi, for example. We spoke about him. I'd love him to prove us wrong and do our scales on us and, win his plays back and all that kind of stuff. So all the guys that have come in during that transfer window, we haven't, I don't think, had one who has stood out like a sore thumb as being a phenomenal buy. And then you've got Palma coming into that category now. I thought that Yang showed some really good early signs when he came on. He looked as though he was tricky. He could take on a man. We've seen a wee bit of Palma over the last few weeks. He made an impact against Motherwell. He almost made an impact against Lazio, and he's done the same again today. He is looking the part. A big, strong boy, strong runner.
Yeah, I like the fact that he's clearly not afraid to take his man on, and he believes he can do them for pace, which he can. His goal, I love to see shots like that because if you look, there was almost no backswing. He just ball came in one touch and almost in the same motion just swept it into the net. and it went in like a bullet. It was absolutely beautiful.
The second, he kind of lined up to hit the first shot, and he's decided to play Hatate. The second one looked like a more difficult shot to take. You're right.
Yeah.
There was no real room for him to get a good run up it, but great technique, superb. Xander Mack comes in. That's why you don't drop Hatate, and Palma starting to look like a player as well. Yeah, we know what Hatate can do, and we're getting an insight into what Palma can do as well. Paddy Lavery, skills excellent. I want to talk about the man. I actually want to talk about him and Carter Vickers. I think that in that first half, there was a moment, probably 66-second period, where Carter Vickers wins 2 headers, Scales wins 1, when Kilmarnock are trying to apply a bit of pressure. And then similarly, over a period of about 60 or 90 seconds, Carter Vickers intercepts something right into the box, and Scales does it right on the back of him. I think they both played really well today.
You know, the interesting thing, I actually think there's a... Now, again, this is the first time I've watched the two of them play a full half of football together, but if you remember when we signed Carl Starfelt, there was a lot of concern about his ability, but we all agreed that playing alongside Carter Vickers made him a better player, and it brought out his best qualities. I think I saw a bit of that with Scales today. I think that being alongside Carter Vickers, who's clearly a better central defender,
Good point.
Is making Scales up his game a bit more as well. And I think that you could, you know, in the fullness of time, assuming that this is our back two for the next few games anyway, you could see a further surge in Scales' form, a la Starfelt when he started playing with Carter Vickers.
Listen, Liam, I think it's a great point, and it actually builds on something that young James was saying on Friday. We were talking about Scales, and we're still talking about him in such kind of terms that it's still a stopgap, it's still a temporary measure. You know, I think it's natural for us to do that. We're thinking about him as maybe still not being in the top 2 choices. On form, he absolutely is. You can't drop the guy. But young James was saying, you know, this is, in his view, it's an opportunity here for Liam Scales to have more of a longevity about his time in the Celtic first team. How do you do that? Well, the Rock's back, isn't he? And you're right. I rated Starfelt. I think Starfelt was unlucky in that he played his entire Celtic career at the wrong side of the central defensive partnership. And he didn't have that natural flow to his game on the left-hand side. He always had to second guess. You could see that sometimes he would pivot, he would take an extra touch. So he was kind of playing against that a wee bit. But you know, their record was brilliant together. I was sad to see Starfelt going. You bring in Liam Scales, and it's a very good point you make there. Now we could see the development of a partnership. And that's very interesting to see as well. He's looked so assured. I mean, the big man, Carter Vickers, he got blamed the other night because he made an individual error, but that's very few and far between that he's done that. There was an occasion, like I said before, with the interception. We've missed somebody putting their body on that. How often's he done that? I remember a game against Rangers 2 seasons ago. Liam, he threw himself in front of everything. You know, things that were going to end up in the net, and he was throwing his body in front of them. And as you say, I'm pretty sure Scales is one of these guys, I think, in terms of football, where there's always a willingness and an ability to develop. Some people hit a ceiling. And I think when I look at O'Reilly, I can see in O'Reilly that he's always going to be a guy that develops. Scales looks as though he's the same as well. Now that he's playing alongside the best centre-half at the club, let's hope it benefits him as well. Tony, Hatate has found his touch, and what a touch it is, by the way. And we were talking about the weather. We've got an update from Sherbet D, who tells us it's -10 in Govan. So thank you for that. we can see Liam from the stands. It's affected a lot of people's travel today, that weather, isn't it?
Stadium looks about half full, maybe. Slightly over that, perhaps. It's look, if this game was being played at any stadium other than Celtic Park today, it would probably have been called off, because it's only because we can afford to make sure the pitch is immaculate regardless of the weather that this game went ahead. Any other stadium in the west of Scotland today, that game probably doesn't happen.
Yeah, no, you're right. And obviously there's been a few games postponed today due to the weather, but obviously with Celtic Park being as it is, and with the groundsman and obviously working all the way up to this particular game to make sure that the playing surface is definitely going to be available it was always really the infrastructure around the transport that was a concern. And I know a lot of trains were off, etc. So there'll be people very, very disappointed at the moment. Probably a bit damp standing in a pub watching this with a match ticket. Loopy 33, Palma starting makes us look a better team. Well, Jota left the building, and it left us with a number of wingers at the club. And I think that my view on that one, Liam, when Jota left, was that it would be Maeda, and then it's an opportunity now for Abada to get that longevity in terms of the first team berth, make the jersey your own, come out of the shadows of Jota, and have the season of your life under Brendan Rodgers, basically. I think a bit of bad luck has put paid to that. But what it then does is it opens an opportunity for someone else. So you look through the wingers that you've got available, Palma, you've got obviously Yang, who's played a few games, Jamesy Forrest, who's played a few games, Mikey Johnson, who's made the bench recently, Rocco Vata a wee bit further down in the pecking order, and of course Marco Tilio when he comes back to fitness. But from what I've seen in the last 3 games, Palma really is grabbing. He is grabbing this jersey and trying to make it his own, and I think he will. He gives you something. He gives you something. It's not about balance. He's a completely different player from Maeda. But there's a good point coming here from Jamie, who is happy that Brendan has Palma on his strong side. Remember, Ange would always play Jota on the right to accommodate Maeda. Ludicrous. What is, because I know that you like Maeda through the middle. What's your take though on Maeda on the right?
It's not ideal, but I would probably still rather have him there than not playing at all, because with a player as dynamic as Palma, and also if Yang's playing, he's got it as well. The ability to switch back and forth, like Jota and Maeda did to such great success last year. I still think the potential is there. Maeda is definitely not he's at his strongest on the right, but I think a lot was made of that one shot where he almost took out the Green Brigade. But that happens, right? I mean, everybody's allowed a mistake now and again. But no, I think again, it's about growing into your roles in the team. We talked about how Rio Hatate had to grow into his new role within that midfield, and it's the same for Dyson. He might have to figure out how to play on the right in order to stay in this team. And if that's the case, then so be it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he was quite inventive in the first half, actually, Maeda. There was a few occasions where he created from the right-hand side. He got on the end of a phenomenal ball, actually, by Hatate. I thought it was a fantastic... It was one of his Hollywood passes, wasn't it? And Maeda probably took the wrong option by heading it. He could have probably brought it down. He had Kyogo in the middle as well. Stevie boy, Parry, I would get skills in the gym, get a few kilos on him. He's doing all right. Doing all right. He's lean. He's very, very lean. Danny boy, outrageous from Hatate, absolutely. And Patrick using the word of the week, delicious. And it has been one of those performances in the first half. You predicted 3-0 in this game, didn't you, Liam? And it's looking like it could be heading towards that. And Neeps, I think they've got a player on their hands, absolutely. I want to, before we go back into the second half, one final point to make here is Greg Taylor came in for a lot of stick during the week. I think the fullbacks have been outstanding. There's a real attacking intent to them, isn't there?
Yeah, Celtic TV commentary remarked during the first half that they wonder if Johnson and Taylor have got a bet running between who can score first, because they're both shooting on sight as soon as they get within 30 yards of goal. It's great to see, because it's not going to work every time, but probably 2 or 3 times a season you are going to get one that's just going to fly into the net. And I mean, Alistair Johnson must, when we saw those 2 chances that he had a few weeks ago, where he, so very, very nearly scored, he must wonder what he's got to do to get a goal at this point. So, yeah, it's great to see both players playing with confidence and coming through. And again, I think Carter Vickers being back in the defence gives the 2 of them the confidence to push up, because they know they've got a real powerhouse behind them if they lose the ball,
You know what you're saying there about Carter Vickers, you're right. It's not just his individual performance. It's what he brings out in the players round about him. And when I'm looking in that first half there at Taylor and Johnson, there is a kind of confidence in them going forward, knowing that they've got the back door locked behind them because Carter Vickers is there. Magnet 67, we will see you at full time, and I hope you're right about your prediction being 5-0 as well. And I'm bringing in Brian O'Neill. We did have a player called Brian O'Neill actually back in the 90s. Yeah, ended up at Wolfsburg, I think, didn't he, in Germany?
I remember he scored the winning goal in a 5-4 win over Falkirk
at Brockville.
The old Brockville. Yeah, what a game that was. We were 4-2 down at one point.
That was incredible. That was incredible. And you know this, one of the goal scorers, I think he scored twice that day, was Andy Payton. And Andy is playing in the St. Roch's game a week tomorrow, sold out after 48 hours. Big announcements coming up about a few other players, by the way. I'm surprised, says Brian, at us being 2 up. I'd expected a Euro hangover, but credit to Brendan Rodgers and his team. He has the boys well motivated. And I'm just going to bring this up from Sean Spillane as well. Cox CSC number 1 over despite the weather. God bless all 14 of them. They deserve a few more goals for effort alone. Unfortunately, working last night and tonight, otherwise I'd be over with them. Absolutely. A massive hail to all the Irish fans who made it over despite the weather. And hopefully you can enjoy the rest of the game and tonight as well. We're going to have to go back to the action, Liam. Really looking forward to the second half. Thank you, everybody, for getting involved. And thank you to Liam Carrigan for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.